Welcome to Trimet 101. Today we're going to be talking about articulated buses, which is not the first time I've talked about articulated buses, and sort of some frustrations that I have. For those that don't know Trimet's history or haven't lived here for multiple decades, Trimet in fact did have articulated buses throughout most of the 80s and 90s decades. They were a common sight on TV Highway, Barber Boulevard, Interstate Avenue, Hawthorne Boulevard, and potentially others as well. It's now 2023, and what happened? Now, the only articulated buses you're going to see are on FX, which runs on Division Street. This was a bus rapid transit project, and BRT projects require higher capacity buses. So Trimet was kind of forced to buy them. They only got articulated buses because they had to. So, is Trimet dragging their heels with ordering articulated buses? Yes. Yes, they are. And I am incredibly frustrated. However, I'm a little less frustrated because there is good news about Beaverton Transit Center, which I've talked about before. It will be upgraded and reconstructed to allow for articulated buses to use the space more easily. And overhead chargers for battery electric buses will also be a part of that. Again, I've already mentioned all of this. So it's not like Trimet is doing nothing to prepare for a future with articulated buses. Beaverton Transit Center is Trimet's busiest transit center. It has the highest ridership and has a ton of services, including a commuter rail line that is incredibly forgettable, but that's a different story. So, construction is supposed to begin in a couple years on upgrading the transit center. So if we want to answer this video's question of how much longer will it be before we get articulated buses, there's your answer. As soon as that's done, so a few more years. There are rumors that Trimet might be getting some articulated electric buses. And we don't know if that's true, but I personally recommend the New Flyer XE60. I've always been a big fan of New Flyer, and I think their Excelsior buses are nice. But that's not the only reason I recommend them. BYD, I believe, also makes electric articulated buses. But I just don't know if I can trust their US plant like I can with the New Flyer plant. It just seems like a lot of performance issues seem to plague the BYD buses, and something feels off to me about that. So that's yet another reason I would recommend New Flyer over BYD. I didn't even put this in the script, but Seattle has been also trying the New Flyer XE60, some articulated electric buses, so it might be worth contacting them to see how their performance issues have been, because I'm pretty sure they've actually been doing fairly well with them. They got a bunch. They got 40 of them. So it would be worth checking in on King County Metro to see how much success they have had with them. So now let's go into a bit of history. In the 80s, both Trimet in Portland and King County Metro in Seattle experimented with articulated buses. We got crappy Crown Icarus 286 buses. And after these were due for retirement and replacement, Trimet replaced them with, I believe, the 2200 series buses, which are 40 feet long. What did Seattle do? Not that. As soon as it was time to retire their original buses, and even, I believe, before they retired them, King County Metro had already ordered New Flyer D60s. These were the original high-floor articulated buses that New Flyer made. And they also had some dual-mode trolley buses manufactured by Breda. Anyways, point is, King County Metro in Seattle kept buying articulated buses after they retired the crappier ones. Because, you know, busy routes, they don't just suddenly not become busy anymore. So my ideal utopian future for Portland is to see way more articulated buses. Hopefully both corridors that are currently being studied for FX, which would be the TV Highway corridor and the 82nd Avenue corridor, hopefully those actually get built and are serviced by bright green articulated electric buses. Many of the frequent service routes and other trips that service the schools, like school trips, would also greatly benefit with articulated buses. Now these would be like normal city buses. They would have more in common with our 40-foot buses than they would with the FX buses, even though they would be 60 feet long. Front door boarding, just like the 40-footers. They'd have an external bike rack, just like the 40-footers. Touch to open doors for the back two doors in the bus, just like the 40-foot buses. It would have the blue external paint with the orange stripe, just like the... yeah, you get it. Ideally, all bus garages that Trimet has would be equipped to store articulated buses. Powell already has it for storing all of the FX buses. Merlo Garage should be getting an update here in a few years that will be able to store articulated buses. And the Columbia site, which should become a garage hopefully soon-ish, stored our FX buses when they were first delivered there. So I imagine those are all pretty much good to go. Center Garage does not store articulated buses for now, but hopefully an upgrade would be able to happen there eventually. So in conclusion, give it a few more years, and we might be seeing some articulated buses returning to the Portland area. It's crazy to me because Eugene, a much, much smaller city, has articulated buses, and not just for the EMX. Regular city bus routes have articulated buses. And Vancouver, Washington has 2 BRT lines plus 2 bonus articulated buses that are used on busy routes. It's crazy to me. Portland is severely lacking when it comes to articulated buses. But just give it a few more years and you might be seeing them back out on the streets. So finally, after almost 3 decades of not having them, articulated buses might once again be making a return for the busy routes in Trimet, which is pretty exciting. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.